Mike, man, there's nothing in the world like football, isn't there?
Nothing like football and marketing.
And marketing.
When I think football, when I think marketing, I think of football.
You just think it, don't you?
Yep.
It is a big deal around here, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. Well, we're today at the Auburn University football area, stadium in the background, players that have been by in the foreground. And the reason we're here is to talk about marketing, talk about starting your own business. Why is that important? Why are we here?
I don't know, but I know that football is big business.
Yeah, it is.
And I know that right now for the 2007 season, that Auburn is undefeated.
Right now they
That's
are.
Right. And if you took a poll around here, we're number 1 in the country.
That's right. Just ask anybody.
That's called marketing. We're marketing our image.
Uh-huh.
And so today we're going to talk about how to start your own business. Small business,
yeah.
And hopefully make it into a bigger business, and maybe how to avoid some of the pitfalls that a lot of people make, like buying an airplane, listening to marketing presentations, things like that.
Things like that, right? Stuff that just doesn't take you anywhere.
Right, exactly.
Well, let's see. I guess we'll just start making our first points about marketing. Well, let's talk about starting a business. I think for probably most of you folks, you'd be interested in starting a new business. So let's jump into there. If you were starting a new business, if you were a brand new vocational expert, how would you get some referrals? What would you do to get some people in?
I wouldn't do that.
No? Okay.
No, actually, what the thing that I've encouraged people to do on even on this podcast or on our earlier versions of the podcast is the first thing that I would do is encourage you, if you have a chance, to start off in the business for a company who's been around for a while, who knows how to do it. And
yeah.
that's and part of the reason why I'm recommending that is that
because that's how you did it.
That's how I did it.
That is how you did
it. And so I think I would have some points for the listening audience in a way that you would not have, because you, with your linkage to the university,
right.
A lot of people feel like that sets you aside.
Right.
And I think being from a university gives you a drawing card that maybe not being from one doesn't give you. If that's clear enough. No, I think I
got the message.
That's one of the. I mean, I think, and that's a point I think that we can talk about during the course of this podcast of around marketing. But just my own history, just to sort of tell people where I am. My first real rehabilitation job in private for-profit rehabilitation was with what was then called IRA, or International Rehabilitation Associates, because of the acronym IRA. And by the way, you don't have problems with your technology here. That's the sound that you might be hearing is a truck, I think, going backwards.
Okay.
Or a golf cart going backwards over it. Oh no, it's the gate.
It's the
gate
gate
athletic
closing. Yeah.
But I started off with a company now called Intracore. At the time that I worked for them, they were the largest for-profit rehabilitation company in this country, and maybe even probably in the world. And at that time, and I'm going way back to 1980, 81 or thereabouts, they were bigger than all of their competitors combined. Now, I'm sure that that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
But they were not they didn't have that size of the market share by accident. They were experts in marketing.
Okay.
And so what I would do is share with you some of the things that we did back then, some of the things that I encourage people to do now that will help you get your foot in the door in this particular business. And some of it depends on the type of business that you want to do, but specifically if you're wanting to do forensics, for example. And this is just one of the examples, and I learned this from Intracore, and also I worked with Crawford Rehabilitation a little bit after that. You want to go to where the referral sources are, and that's true of any business that you're looking at. So,
okay, so you got to first identify your referral sources, obviously.
Right. So if the nature of your business is going to be litigation, your referral sources are either going to come from attorneys,
right,
which is kind of the logical thing, but also claims agents. So in the state of Georgia, we always made sure to go to the bar meetings or have representatives at bar meetings, but we also went to the claims meetings, which back then and continuing to this day was just a really huge party in downtown Atlanta that just went on for several days, and a lot of shenanigans went on, but a lot of business got conducted there too.
We have a similar thing in Alabama. The Alabama Workers' Compensation Association meets, and it is a big marketing meeting. It's kind of what happens here. Attorneys are marketing themselves. private practitioners are marketing themselves, so it's the same thing.
And you've presented at that meeting before, haven't you?
I actually have presented that meeting.
How did that go?
You know, I don't remember the presentation too well. I was presenting for other vocational experts and case managers, so I don't even remember the topic anymore, but we felt good about it.
Yeah.
You know, at the time. I don't recall it now.
I did a presentation at the Georgia Trial Lawyers Association back in the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
And it was their annual meeting. There were about 500 lawyers there. It was at the Ritz-Carlton. And back then we didn't have PowerPoint. I used a slide presentation and was scared to death because that size group, I had presented well to groups up to 100 people or something, but 500 lawyers was really intimidating. But
a lot of cross-examination.
One lawyer can be.
Yeah, really.
But I had a series of maybe 40 slides and strategically arranged, and then I had a sheet of paper in front of me that had kind of a 1 or 2 word buzzword for each slide to know what I was going to talk about. And got up there, and the slide projector didn't work.
Of course.
I had 45 minutes.
Of course.
And my slide projector didn't work.
And your buzzwords.
And I had about 80 buzzwords on a sheet. And so I went for about 15 minutes. Then I started telling jokes. And the jokes went better than the presentation. But the bottom line was I couldn't get out of the room without giving up all my business cards. I mean, people, so it was a good thing. Yeah.
Nothing happened good except you gave all your business cards out and probably got some calls out of it.
I got a lot of calls. It floated my private practice for several years. There were probably 4 or 5 years after that, people would say to me, "Oh, I attended your presentation at the Ritz-Carlton a few years ago," and I'd say, "Well, why are you calling me now?" Because I thought that would surely take me off their list. And to almost to a person, what they said was that what they wanted, even though the presentation wasn't the best in the world, although they don't remember it as being as disastrous as I do. I don't.
Right, they wouldn't. They enjoyed the jokes, probably.
Yeah, they did. I had some good lawyer jokes then. But that they wanted someone who could think on their feet quickly, and they felt like I had done that. And I didn't just pack it in and go away. But I was really lucky to get in front of that group, and so I know I'm kind of jumping the gun or moving into the marketing a little quickly, but if you want to get referrals from lawyers, you got to go to where lawyers are. And so bar conventions, trial lawyers association meetings, and those are good things to do. Also, if you're in a town like this, Auburn, which is developing into a mid-sized town with the Auburn, Opelika area, they also have local meetings like luncheons, things like that.
Right. And they are always looking for speakers.
That's
always after somebody to come talk. So if you can go and talk about, if your background is vocational rehabilitation, for example, and you want to go talk about just hard cases or placement, placing people into jobs, what goes on, or the prejudice against people with disability, any topic you can think of like that might interest a group of lawyers, for example.
Right.
They would have you in a minute, and I guarantee you'll get some referrals out of it.
Yeah, you really will. And if you have a hard time making presentations like that, which a lot of us do,
tell jokes.
Tell jokes.
Yeah, have buzzwords and tell jokes. Yeah.
But I mean, you can even if that's not your deal, I mean, you can even go to Toastmasters and learn how to do little short luncheon meetings, because that's one of the focuses that they provide in speech giving.
So the point I heard you make was, first of all, know your referral source, and then secondly, figure out where they go, what they do, and try to get in front of them or somehow with them. Some of these meetings, that workers' comp meeting, they actually set up tables, and you pay to have a table set up, and then you market people that wander around at like a convention table. I've never done that. Have you ever done that?
I've done it with the other companies before, and I did it with, I probably been at the table for 4 or 5 different companies over the years, and I think that's good. I mean, if you
particularly when you're starting out, I mean, you got to get your name out there,
right? And I mean, neither one of us do a whole lot of marketing nowadays because the number of hours that are in the week and all of that, we can't do any more business than we're doing.
If I was going to market now, I would do a better job with the cases I have, and I'd get more business just from that. So I don't need to market actually.
Exactly.
But one of the things that when you do, again, when you're starting out, is you look at where are these folks at and how can you get a hold of them, or how can you somehow do something that they'll remember you by. And that's the reason for the stadium in the background that you might be able to see.
Woo!
there's quite a few skyboxes in that stadium, and I noticed some of these attorney groups spend hundreds of thousands a year to have a skybox for 6 or 7 games a year, and that's all about marketing.
Exactly. There's a group over in Alex City that I don't think they get a skybox per se, but they have a tent every week.
Yeah.
And
your low rent skybox.
No, these are actually some pretty well. No, yeah. But they have a band. They have live entertainment.
Oh, okay, all right.
And all that.
Probably a lot of food.
And a lot of food. So the lawyers individually, or I guess each of the law firms will pitch in some money to be a part of that. But that's all marketing for them. And, I've charged some of my expenses for tailgating off to my, as business expenses. I don't want to say too much here. You never know where these podcasts are going to go.
You never know who'll be watching this one.
But it is legitimate. I mean, I've had lawyers and people.
Entertainment expense, right?
Exactly.
It's
That's
legitimate.
Right. And referral sources are potential and all kinds of stuff. I mean, and to segue that, it doesn't have to be lawyers, and that's the group that we're talking about today. But a few years ago, I was looking at doing high school counseling and guidance, high school students. And so what we found was that the group that we needed to market, there were two groups really: the parents of kids that were that, or students that were that age, but also the school system. We had the way the school systems worked. We had to get in with them before the beginning of the year for us to have any kind of voice and things that were going on there. But that's a service that's needed, and even though it's not technically forensics or anything, it is something that vocational evaluators,
it's kind of skills we have. It's applying our skills
in
new places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you got to go to where the referral sources are, wherever those people are.
So if I'm starting a new business, for sure, the very first thing I want would be business cards. And on the card, it needs to be descriptive enough that people can look at it, and if it says something like creative solutions, and
right.
You say, well, what is that? So you want to be sure to have a business card that's descriptive of what role you play, your name, every phone number you have, email, website, anything you can put on it like that, and keep those with you at all times, because that may be one of your best marketing tools, is just giving those out. I read a really good book about a car salesman, and he said he went to football games, and he would take handfuls of his card and just throw them into the air, knowing that somebody would pick up one every once in a while. And he said, they always needed a car.
That's true.
So you never know. But so having cards, that's one thing you really need to start with. And then I heard you say, figure out your referral source, and then go and somehow interact with them.
Right, because in the litigation business, you need to have the technical expertise and those sorts of things, the credentials, which I'm sure you have. But the thing that the referral sources want to know is if they can trust you.
Yeah.
And so that's the part of where you spend time with them, and you have to be where they are and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think that's really important. I mean, I can take just a few in the business that I'm in. It doesn't take very many lawyers who are into this personal injury and work comp business before I've run out of time. It's not a volume.
You can't
business.
Service a lot of people.
Exactly.
A few would be enough. So the web pages would be one good way of kind of doing things, probably.
A web page, I think, is a great idea, actually, because there's two things that a web page will do. One is it puts your name out there, and people doing web page searches will come up, and you'll get a hit on your name. And of course, you want to put your web page address on your business card, so when you hand it to them, they'll have somewhere to look. It also, I think, will help you identify what it is you need to say, what your lines of business are going to be, because once you start putting it on paper or on the web, people are going to trust that that's what you do.
Right.
And it defines things.
If you put a sign on the door that says life care planning, you better be
ready for life care.
Ready for life care planning, because people will call you with that need.
That's right.
That idea. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's say you've marketed yourself, you've presented, you've given out cards, you've found your referral sources, and you get a referral. I think then for new people, the next thing is, well, what do I charge? How do I go about deciding how much I charge? Mike does a nice thing where he says, I got a special this week. He says it's the Rothschild McClanahan 3-for-1 evaluations. And so he gets these people, and then he says, oh, I forgot to tell you, it's like $30,000 Yeah.
I did 9 in one day, by the way.
9.
Irmo Marini, you want to call him, he'll confirm that because he actually helped me
That's
do
true.
9 in one day.
Mike has the record of the most. I talked to Irmo. I did. This is true. I talked to Irmo about that, and I said, Irmo, I can't believe that y'all did 9 in one day. And he said, yeah. He said, every time I'd start to ask a few questions, Mike would say, move it on, come on. We got the next one to see you. He said, whatever happened to quality services?
Little did he know he was participating in quality
That's
services.
right. Well, some of us weren't interested in quality, just interested in
one other tip
9.
about marketing. Don't do a podcast that tells the truth like this.
Oh, yeah, this is not good. This could come back to haunt somebody.
Yeah.
I can imagine that. Setting your fees. I moved on to setting your fees.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 ways I know of, the conservative way is you figure how much you need to live.
You can do it that way.
How much do you need? How many cases can you do? What expenses you're going to have, and then not how many cases you're going to do. You do how much you're going to need. Office expenses, computer, gas, all that kind of thing, clothing, whatever your needs are. How much you need to live. Then you figure what your expenses are, your fixed and variable expenses, and then you divide that by how many cases you think you can do in a year, and you come up with a figure. I'm serious. I know
you're serious.
This is one way to do it. What most of us do is say, how much can I say before they die? So you say something like that. They'll say, well, how much do you charge? And you say, $300. And you look, and if it doesn't seem to bother too much, you go, an hour.
An hour.
Well, how many hours? $1,500 worth. An hour. So you should really get the reaction. No, the serious part of that is that you do what the market will bear.
Exactly.
And if you're not getting any referrals, you probably over-exceeded what the market will bear in terms of your asking price. Or in our case, is what the attorneys will pay. Because it's hard to get money out of them. I'll tell you the truth, what I try to do on pricing. One is I need to know generally how much the people charge to do what it is that I do.
Your competitors, you have to do a little market research.
What do the competitors charge? Yeah. Usually when people start, they come in a little below their competitors to try to gain business. All right, but then beyond that, I like to be a little high, actually.
Right, I do too.
I like to be a little high.
I like to charge more, too.
And charge more, too.
And charge more. I'm having a lot of
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
The other part,
talking about football games.
Yeah. The other part of that, though, is
Jack Daniels.
I like to look and see what the attorneys charge, because I'm always thinking if I charge about the same thing they charge, then they're not going to feel too bad about paying me. But if I charge a great deal more than they charge, then they'll grumble and gripe about it, and that actually has proven true for me.
I like that. What I do personally is along the same lines of all that, but I do always want to know what my competitors are charging.
Right.
I mean, in general,
right.
Being a little bit more expensive is not a bad deal at all. But on the other hand, if you're if you're going to charge by the hour, for example, and at some point, all of this, you're going to have to figure out an hourly rate. You have to learn how to keep track of your time, things like that.
Right.
But for me personally, because I had several years of charging by the hour with Crawford and Company, and then with Intercore, and then Crawford and Company, and a couple other companies that I helped start. After a while, you kind of figure, you sort of know how much time it takes to do that, and you just charge that. Now, I've gone to a unit billing on a lot of stuff, like a cost per service.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So, like on the day that I did 9 evaluations, at the time, I think I was charging
quality work.
This is 20 years ago, but at the time, or close to it, at the time I was charging maybe $600 for an evaluation.
Yeah.
So that was a $5,400 day. If my math. That's right, $5,400 a day.
Less $200 for your workers.
Yeah, I paid each of the graduate students $20. But it was a great experience for them, and they really appreciated it.
It looked good on their Vita.
Yeah, it does. And what you kind of get it. But anyway, I mean, that's one of the advantages of doing unit billing like that.
It's a good idea.
You can do several at a time and really make a profit. Nobody complains about it.
Right. Cause
at least to my face anyway.
Boy, the stories I've heard.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about, you mentioned about starting a few businesses. Was that fly-by-night vocational expert services? That the fly-by-night, was that you?
Well, I've been involved in the startup of several businesses.
I bet you.
Yeah.
How about the closing down?
I usually leave before that point.
Okay.
Go in, get it going, get my money, and get out. That's
I hear you.
To be, yeah.
All right, so you find out what your competitors are doing. You figure what the going rate is. If you're just brand new, starting a little bit less makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of combining those two, and us talking about if you've been around a while, you don't market as much. But the reason is word of mouth. This is a small. You say you can make do with a few attorneys, but if you look in the state, there's not, despite what it looks like on TV, there really is the same handful of attorneys doing this kind of work. And then once one of them uses you, they tell all the rest of them about what they think about you. And so in one way, you've got a reputation quickly that they pick up on or they pass on. And that also goes with judges, too. They get to know you a little bit.
It cuts both ways, too, though.
Yeah.
If you get in and you stink up a case, it'll hurt you. And so what you want to do, especially when you first get in, is don't make any bad mistakes. I mean, truthfully,
be conservative and not make bad mistakes.
And then go from there. But and that includes judges too.
Yeah, it really does.
I've gotten referrals from people nowadays who say, well, they know that judge really likes my testimony, so they hire me.
Right.
Likewise, there's a couple of lawyers that send me a lot of business, but there's some business they don't send me because there might be a lawyer. There is a lawyer on the other side of some of their cases,
right?
And he and I don't get along at all.
Okay.
And so to keep things yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention any names.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But so I mean, to keep things. I mean, to facilitate their own cases. And that's fine with me. I don't have a need to do everybody's business or all of any person's business.
Yeah.
I just want to do enough to keep me happy.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where all I get it from. So.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's interesting to me about that because we get accused of being a plaintiff expert or a defense expert, but so many times which side I'm working really has to do with the attorney, what they're doing. Because I'll work, the same attorney will just keep calling me over and over. They get comfortable with you, so they're happy to call you. Now there's, you do get tainted in a way if you work too much for one attorney. Sometimes they'll say, well, I've had too many cases with you, and it's starting to look like you're a hired gun for me, so I'm not going to hire you for a while or anymore. And you just have to kind of toughen up to that. It may be nothing personal to you. It's just a kind of a business practice.
And it's okay. I mean,
it's okay.
And a lot of them will come back around. I mean, I've had several, because I'll go through up and down phases with people and with my own practice.
Right.
And a lot of them end up coming back around. I'll get teaser calls, and if I call them back and everything, we get back on the same page, and it works fine.
Yeah.
If I want, if I want to continue doing business with them. So, I mean, part of what we're talking about now is not just getting the business, but maintenance. Or maintaining the business. And that's an effective part of marketing. Quality services. One of the issues I have that I get criticized a lot about is timeliness, not just of reports, but in my own practice, I went through this past 3 weeks. I had 12 or 13, depends how you count them, maybe more than that, consecutive days where I was on the road all day. And so it made it really difficult to call people back during the time, because most of the time when I'm on the road, I'm with people and doing lunch or things like that. Don't really have much of a break. And so people I do business with a lot know that that's the nature of the beast. And if they...
But it's hard because you'll worry about, well, if I don't get them called back within a day or two, they'll go get somebody else.
That's
which
true.
Some do. Some do.
And so I'll use alternative means rather than just the phone. Like when I get back at night, if I have email addresses, sometimes I'll email them a quick note and tell them what's going on. And of course, cell phones, sometimes even faxes. I'll fax a note to them if I don't have an email address. And some law firms that I've worked with, there's sort of a code we have. They'll call me once, and then if they call me a second time, then that means I need to call them. And if the lawyer then calls, if the paralegals call me a time or two, and I haven't called them back, then the lawyer calls. I better call them back.
You better call, because that's the last effort they're making.
Exactly. And
most
companies, if you go to work for a private for-profit company, their standard, and a lot of lawyers have the same standard, especially on the defense side, is that you return all phone calls within a 24-hour period.
Wow.
That's
their standard.
Wilson guy that was on your side of the Jones case told me that his firm insisted on that, and I've had some defense firms that are that way. So, and that's not always, that would be really difficult for me to do, but it's an interesting and a nice discipline because nobody ever feels like they're really neglected per se. So
try to get back with them.
Yeah.
Times they don't. Yeah. Well, it brings me to another issue, and that is, what about an office? You know, I see two ways of going at this whole practice. One is the Cadillac way, where you say, well, I want a big office and an attractive person out front there to be the receptionist and to greet people, and big waiting room and all that kind of stuff, with the obvious problem that you got to make enough money to pay for all that stuff each month before you make anything. And then I see other people that say, well, I'd rather work out of the house and do everything on my laptop and you know, or in my car, and try to save that money and have more to go in my pocket. So, or maybe something in the middle. I'm not sure.
I've done it both ways. I've had, I went from the university, then I opened an office.
Right.
And that worked really well for me. And let me just mention the rationale that I used for the opening the office was that I figured with one extra evaluation a month, I would pay for my office, for my office, all my office expenses. And I thought that at the time, I figured that having the office would generate at least one additional vocational evaluation stuff a month, and that really did work. I mean, it worked that way fine.
Right.
If I'm doing testing, you always have to have a place to test, and I think it needs to be a little bit more controlled than if you're doing case management.
Right.
You know, if you're doing case management, you can meet, you know, at a restaurant if you want to, or just about anywhere. But if you're doing testing, because there's an apparatus involved, and you want to have a controlled environment, then you usually need to have an office. Now, I about 2 years ago shut my office down, not because of any change in service or anything like that, but I realized that almost all my evaluations were being done on the road, and my office was just a holding place for all the stuff I had.
Okay.
Still not a bad idea. I mean, I've had different. I've kind of gone back and forth about it, but being without an office, now I do all of my evaluations like in other people's offices, basically. And sometimes, every once in a while,
what I do.
Yeah, if I might go to a town that there's not a lawyer's office there, and I might rent a motel room or get their little conference room to go to do the testing, or sometimes you go to the library and reserve a room.
Tallahassee, Alabama, I sat in the library, but it actually was one of the nicest places because they gave us a room to ourselves, and it was great.
It's free.
It is free, and it was free. I've gotten to where I used to use my office to do this kind of stuff, but I've moved out of that, and I'm with you. Most of the ones I do, I try to go to the attorney's office. There's a couple of advantages about that for me, and for you too, I'm sure. One is they generally have a nice conference room. Their client they're referring knows how to get there.
They're comfortable there.
They're comfortable there. They've been there before. It's not far usually from where they live. And then I hardly ever go to an attorney's office like that. I don't come out with another referral.
Exactly.
So there's a good marketing thing out of that. Occasionally, though, they don't really want me to come or don't offer me to come do it there. And so I've been renting space at a conference center. I'll rent a small meeting room. And in the long run, that is so much cheaper than trying to maintain my own office. So I'd rather put the money into tests or computers or something that I use a lot.
Or into marketing.
Or into marketing. I put it into marketing. I've got a business license. You do business license?
I did when I had my office presence here. I don't now.
Yeah. I haven't done that, but and I always wonder whether I should. The thing with a business license in our town is it has to do with whether you're doing your business in town.
Right.
And for me, so much of it is on the road or in somebody else's office or out of town. So I'm not sure.
I think it depends on how you interpret the laws around that. The way that I would do my taxes.
Same way I interpret the laws around taxes. Oh, that doesn't apply to me. Oh, this is a deduction. It certainly applies to me.
Well, I did my business license on the basis of the amount of money that I actually generated in my office.
Yeah.
Not that my practice generated. So, going back to if I did, 1 or 2 evaluations a month, then that's what went on the application for my business license. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, the longer I've been in Auburn, the more of my time has been spent in Montgomery or around there.
Yeah.
I really don't do a whole lot of actual work in Auburn. I don't do a lot of generating income work in Auburn. Now, I do the paperwork here.
And on the paperwork even, now this is me personally, but I'd rather be at home and do it
Exactly.
first thing in the morning or late at night. I'd rather do it on my time at home when I've got all my little comforts around me. Some people are not like that. Some people need a separate place from home to go work, to leave the house for. And in that case, you probably do need an office.
Some of that's going to depend on your age, your stage in life. I think if you have small kids, things like that, it's going to be really hard for you to separate that out.
It's tough with small kids.
And I also think learning style. I do have to have a closed door to really be able to focus or concentrate. But it doesn't have to be an
called
office.
ADD style.
Yeah, it is.
Attention deficit disorder. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, one of the things that appealed to me for a while, we had a boom in these offices where you rent an office and then they have a receptionist out front for all the offices, and they have a conference room. And if you use the conference room, you pay an extra fee. But I mean, part of the receptionist time and your office comes under your monthly fee, and that appealed to me. I didn't do it, but it looked like a good idea, and I know people that have done that.
What I like about that too is many times the receptionist also answers the phone. And a lot of people really want a live person that they can talk to, and I think that's great, especially if you. For me personally, just ask whoever that person is. I need to like them, because you need to check in with them every day and sometimes multiple times during the day.
Plus, I need your schedule, because there's nothing worse than talking to a receptionist who says, "Well, I don't know when Dr. McClanahan will be back.
I don't know when Dr. McClanahan."
Yeah, exactly.
Then they realize they're almost like talking to technical assistants for your cell phone. Or actually, you're talking to somebody. I think in India they say now that a lot of times phones are wired there.
I was just on somebody with India for about an hour on the computer the other night. It was horrible. The other part of that.
And did they say, "Don't drop computer, it mess up"?
I didn't understand half of what they did say. The other part of that I found, for a while I tried to do it out of my house, but it was very uncomfortable bringing clients to my home. Mm-hmm. And I had set an office up in one room, but it just it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. So I quit doing that. And as a matter of fact, I've separated my business address from my home address now. Mm-hmm. And you'd love it because I have a suite something, which is, of course, a post office box. Another fly-by-night rehab outfit.
But I think the point there, which I like that. I've always maintained a P.O. box as my mailing address.
Right.
And that's never changed in all the time I've been in Auburn. Now, I've moved around some. But my P.O. box, which is my mailing address, always stays the same.
Right.
And that's in most. If you look at law firms, they'll have a physical address and then they have a P.O. box where they get their mail. It's a little bit more secure too, I think.
Right. I've done that. I've moved recently to using my cell phone as my business phone, and that's real intentional because then it doesn't matter whether I'm connected with the university or it doesn't matter where I'm at. My cell phone numbers can stay the same, and it'll be my business number.
And you can write that off.
And you can write that off. You write your cell phone off. That's exactly right. Another point I wanted to make that has to do with your income. For a while, I went into sales, selling rehab stuff on the side. I was looking for ways of making money. And one of the guys that had been in sales all his life told me something that I haven't forgotten. He said, when you're selling something or providing a service, you need to provide something that everybody needs occasionally, even if it doesn't make a lot of money, just so you have a steady income. And his point was you need to sell razor blades because people are going to buy razor blades. Yeah. So whatever it is, we do the same thing. And I think for you and I, our steady income has been Social Security. Fairly easy kind of place to work. And there's low stress. They do pay, which is good.
Regular.
And so you can get enough per month out of them if you set it up right to pay your bills. And then the other things that come in are like, okay, great, I got this money now, I can really pay my bills. But you can pay the basic stuff out of that.
In fact, I had one of the first early conversations I had when I was entering the market post doctorate or around that same time. Another rehab supplier was telling me that was her approach, that was her stable money.
Yeah.
And she said you make $20,000-$30,000 a year off of Social Security doing vocational expert work, and that was her base income. So that really made sense to me.
Yeah.
And you always know that they're going to pay. You don't always know the lawyer's going to pay.
Yeah.
There's always,
or how long it's going to take.
Right. There's always issues there. So I would encourage you to have that stability, even if it's. mean, if you have a spouse that is working or something like that, that helps a little bit too.
Right.
Or retirement income, that's different too. So
I keep thinking that this area should work, and I bet it does work for a number of people who have small kids. We were talking about the small kid things, because you could do this. You can set your schedule up yourself around your life rather than having your life have to work around your schedule. So if you got kids coming home at 3, or you got to go pick them up or whatever, you could set this up to be primarily a morning, and then after they go to bed, do some work. But I mean, have it set up around the way you want to live. And I think that's an advantage of this kind of private practice. We've been talking mostly about vocational expert stuff because that's what we've been doing and most familiar with. But what about, Mike? You've done case management some. What's the difference in the way you market and run a business as a case manager?
Well, a case manager, I mean, there are a couple of differences. I'm glad you asked me that because mostly what I do is vocational testing. I mean, I'm more of a vocational expert, or vocational evaluator is my background. So I like to, if ever I have a chance, I'm going to test somebody. That's going to be my deal.
Right.
But if but I do case management. And usually, case management means dealing with the patient or the person, the client. A lot of times, dealing with their doctors and ancillary medical people, stuff like that. So, one of the differences in those two types of businesses, in my way of thinking, a vocational evaluator who's going to do a lot of testing actually has more need to have an office than a case manager. Because if you're a case manager, you're either going to be on site.
You want a comfortable car. If you're a case manager, you want a nice, comfortable car.
Because you're going to spend a lot of time in it.
That's
right. What you're going to do.
That's right.
And you're going to spend a fair amount of time in people's homes and doctors' offices, all that kind of stuff. But you're not going to spend a whole lot of money on, well, you're not going to buy test equipment, things like that. You're still going to have clerical expenses and the like, computer, that sort of thing. But you don't even, you can set that up any way you want to. I'm trying to think what. Well, for example, when I first started doing vocational evaluation, actually I've been doing vocational evaluation for a long time, but I have a strong background in testing apparatus, instruments, things like that. And as you know, if you've ever tried to buy one of those independently, they're expensive.
Yeah. I mean, you bought a whole work sample system, basically.
I did. Which worked out really well for me. And then nowadays what I do, I mean, actually I knew I got kind of a deal from the people who sell them.
Right.
Which helped, but it was a system that I liked, and I'd use it and I supplement it with other tests. And now, as new tests come along, or revisions of old tests, I'll pick them out and I'll buy those myself because I like testing.
Right.
But if you're a case manager, you really don't have to do that. I mean, you really spend your resources elsewhere. But case managers, a lot of times, are going to use evaluators because they're going to want to know what kind of vocational objectives that a person might have. And likewise, I think vocational evaluators are going to need case managers, especially if you're not going to do job development, placement, or things like that. And those areas of business, if you're a case manager, you're not just. I mean, I mentioned a minute ago, you're going to be talking to doctors and people like that, but also case managers do job development and placement, so they're going to need to be out in industry. They're going to be doing labor market surveys,
right?
All kinds of things like that.
Visiting their doctors with their clients at the doctor's office. One of the reasons why, as we talked earlier, it gets to be a lonesome job because you're out there pretty much by yourself.
That's true.
Yeah. Which, and just thinking about that a minute, it might be nice to have a home base to go back to, or somebody like a secretary, receptionist back there that you could check in with and keep you grounded or based somewhere. An anchor, have an anchor.
I think that can really be helpful to you. It really can. And the other thing that I've thought about this as a practitioner over the years, that what you have to realize is that if you work with vocational rehabilitation now for the agency, it's a public agency, and even though I know that you feel like there are times that you're working in an adversarial setting, in reality, it's not set up to be adversarial.
Right.
The system that we're talking about is intentional. I mean, it is designed to be adversarial. And so, having lived and worked in that system for so long, I think one of the unfortunate side effects for me was I developed an adversarial personality at times.
Yeah, I've noticed it.
You're not. What do you mean you've noticed that?
I've noticed it.
and so, but it affects the way you think about things. I've talked to young lawyers that after they go to law school and they get in the practice of law, I mean, they struggle at home sometimes because they want to interrogate their spouse. You know?
Yeah, that works real well.
Yeah.
It's like getting your counseling degree, and about the 5th time you say,
"How does that make you feel?"
You seem to feel a little angry at the moment.
You hate your mama.
Yeah, I've been told where to pack that stuff up and what to do with it too. So I mean, that doesn't work. Taking that stuff home doesn't make sense.
And that's the point. It's don't really take it home. I mean, if you're going to work from home, I think that's a great idea. But you can't take the negative parts of your practice home with you because you won't survive at home. And if you're no good at home, you're not going to be very good at work for a while. So
it's not in our culture anymore. We don't separate it like we used to. You don't go home and leave the office. I mean, you carry half of it home on your computer or in your mind, or you take. It's a lot of bleed over between home and work now. So
everybody has virtual offices. They're working while they're driving down the road. They're working in the bathroom. They're working everywhere they go. I don't know where the bathroom part came out.
Yeah, I don't know.
They just threw it in there.
Maybe like one of our faculty said, if I'm thinking about teaching a class while I'm taking a shower, can I write that off as part of my day? Well, maybe so. You sure can on private stuff.
Yep.
You can charge for that time, and you're always looking for ways to charge for that time.
Paul Deutsch said at a conference that he always got his best ideas in the shower.
Yeah.
And I thought, I do too.
Not to do with work.
He was talking about work.
Yeah. He probably. Well, I hear from the old music coming in, Mike. It must be about time to wind it up for this week.
No, that's not music. That's that gate closing.
Is that the gate closing? No, I think there's some music there going on. We'll be taking off a few days and be back with you next week with our next podcast. I don't remember the subject area, but I'm sure it will be intriguing.
And we really appreciate the fact that you're listening in.
We do. We appreciate you as an audience and hope that you might learn something out of this. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Come test time, it all falls on you. We just toss out a lot of crap to see how well you'll do. Oh, we say all kinds of grand things that don't make them true. Come test time, it all falls on you. We just toss out a lot of crap to see how well you'll do. Oh, we say all kinds of grand things that don't make them true. Come test time, it all